Scientists have always operated under one fundamental assumption about complex life. It needs oxygen to survive. This was not just a theory. It was considered a biological absolute, backed by billions of years of evolutionary evidence. Multicellular organisms require aerobic respiration to generate the energy needed for complex cellular processes, making oxygen-free environments essentially dead zones, where only the simplest bacteria might persist. But marine biologists just discovered something in the Mediterranean Sea that rewrites the rules of life itself. Deep in the Latalante Basin, 3,000 meters below the surface, they found multicellular animals living and reproducing in water completely devoid of oxygen. These Loricifera organisms are not just surviving temporary oxygen depletion. They are thriving in conditions that should be instantly lethal to any complex life form. The water they inhabit is so toxic and oxygen-free that it is more hostile to life than the vacuum of space. Here is the catch that is keeping biologists awake at night. These creatures have evolved cellular mechanisms that operate without oxygen, using metabolic pathways that do not exist in any other known organism. They have developed what amounts to alien biochemistry, proving that life can adapt to conditions we thought were absolutely impossible. The discovery forces us to confront a terrifying possibility. If complex life can evolve to survive in Earth's most extreme environments, what other forms of impossible biology might be lurking in places we have never thought to look? These organisms represent a completely different branch of evolution, one that suggests life is far more resilient and potentially unpredictable than we ever dared to imagine. Watch until the end to uncover why these oxygen-free creatures might be the key to understanding how life could exist in the universe's most hostile environments, and what their discovery means for our assumptions about the limits of biological adaptation. The Mediterranean Sea harbors some of Earth's most extreme underwater environments. Deep beneath the familiar blue waters that tourists enjoy lies a hidden world of brine pools, underwater lakes so dense and chemically hostile that they form distinct boundaries with the seawater above them. Dr. Roberto da Navarro from the Polytechnic University of Marche led an international expedition in 2010 to explore the Latalante Basin, one of the Mediterranean's deepest and most isolated brine pools. Located 3,000 meters below the surface, this underwater lake contains water with salt concentrations over 10 times higher than normal seawater. The team expected to find a biological wasteland. The Latalante Basin is completely anoxic, devoid of any measurable oxygen. The water is hypersaline, toxic, and so dense that it does not mix with the seawater above it. According to every principle of marine biology, this environment should be sterile except for the most primitive anaerobic bacteria. Dr. da Navarro and his team were conducting routine sediment sampling, expecting to document the complete absence of complex life in these extreme conditions. They were gathering baseline data for understanding the absolute limits of where multicellular organisms could survive. But when they examined their sediment samples under the microscope, they found something that challenged the fundamental principles of biology. The first anomaly appeared when Dr. da Navarro's team studied sediment cores from the Latalante Basin floor. Instead of the sterile mud they expected, the samples contained what appeared to be multicellular organisms. This was impossible, given what they knew about anaerobic environments. The team initially assumed they were looking at dead organisms that had sunk from the oxygenated waters above. Complex animals sometimes die and settle into anoxic sediments, where they can be preserved for extended periods. This would be a normal finding in deep-sea research. But here is the catch. When they stained the organisms with vital dyes that only react to living tissue, the creatures lit up like Christmas trees. These were not preserved corpses. They were alive and metabolically active in water that contained zero measurable oxygen. The team ran the tests again, convinced they had made an error. Multicellular animals simply cannot survive in completely anoxic conditions. It violates the basic principles of cellular respiration that power complex life. It gets more disturbing. The organisms were not just surviving, they were reproducing. The samples contained individuals at different life stages, including eggs and juveniles, proving that entire life cycles were occurring in this oxygen-free environment. Dr. da Navarro faced an impossible biological puzzle. The organisms they had discovered belonged to the phylum Loricifera, microscopic animals with complex body structures, including nervous systems, digestive tracts, and reproductive organs. These were not simple bacteria. They were sophisticated multicellular creatures. The team analyzed the water chemistry repeatedly, hoping to find trace amounts of oxygen that might explain the organism's survival. The results were consistent: zero oxygen, high hydrogen sulfide concentrations, and salt levels that would be toxic to any known complex life form. Here is the deal. The discovery violated the fundamental equation of complex life. Multicellular organisms require enormous amounts of energy to maintain their cellular structures and biological processes. Aerobic respiration, which uses oxygen to break down glucose, is the only known metabolic pathway capable of generating sufficient energy for complex life. But these Loricifera were thriving without any access to oxygen. They had somehow evolved alternative metabolic pathways that could power complex cellular processes using only the toxic chemicals available in their environment. The implication sent shockwaves through the biological community. If these organisms could survive without oxygen, it meant our understanding of the fundamental requirements for complex life was incomplete. The third phase of analysis revealed something even more disturbing. Dr. Navarro's team discovered that the Loricifera were not just tolerating the anoxic conditions. They required them. When exposed to oxygenated water, the organisms died within hours. The creatures had evolved so completely to their oxygen-free environment that oxygen itself had become toxic to them. This was the biological equivalent of finding animals that could only survive by breathing poison. But here is what made this discovery genuinely terrifying. Cellular analysis revealed that these organisms had developed completely novel metabolic pathways. Instead of using oxygen to break down organic compounds, they were using hydrogen sulfide and other toxic chemicals as electron acceptors in their cellular respiration. The team realized they were not just looking at organisms that could survive without oxygen. They were examining a completely different form of biochemistry. These creatures represented an alternative solution to the energy problem that complex life faces, one that operated on principles unknown to science. The discovery suggested that life could evolve along pathways so different from familiar biology that the organisms might as well be aliens, yet they had developed right here on Earth. The research team used advanced molecular techniques to confirm that the Loricifera were genuinely alive and metabolically active. Fluorescent staining, DNA analysis, and electron microscopy all confirmed the presence of living, reproducing multicellular organisms in completely anoxic sediments. To put that in perspective, finding complex life in oxygen-free water is like discovering fish swimming in battery acid. The chemical environment of the L'Atalante Basin is so hostile that it should denature proteins and destroy cellular membranes within minutes. The Polytechnic University of Marsh confirmed the findings through multiple independent sampling expeditions. Different research teams using different collection methods all found the same impossible organisms thriving in the same impossible conditions. They ruled out contamination because the organisms were found exclusively in anoxic sediments, never in the oxygenated waters above. They ruled out recent death because vital staining and metabolic assays confirmed active cellular processes. Dr. Navarro's team analyzed the cellular structure of the Loricifera using transmission electron microscopy. What they found was unprecedented in anaerobic biology. The organisms possessed complex internal structures, including mitochondria-like organelles that had been modified to function without oxygen. The metabolic analysis revealed that these creatures were using hydrogen sulfide and nitrate as electron acceptors in place of oxygen. This process, called anaerobic respiration, was previously known only in simple bacteria, never in complex multicellular organisms. Professor Antonio Delano, a co-author of the study, confirmed that the organism showed no signs of cellular damage or stress, despite living in conditions that would be instantly fatal to any other known complex life form. The genetic analysis revealed that these Loricifera had evolved unique enzymes and metabolic pathways that do not exist in any other multicellular organism. They represented a completely novel approach to powering complex life. The first suspect was experimental error, or contamination. Marine biologists are trained to be skeptical of extraordinary claims, and finding complex life in anoxic environments seemed too revolutionary to be real. But the data showed clear contradictions to this theory. Multiple independent research teams found the same organisms using different sampling methods. The creatures were consistently found only in anoxic sediments, never in oxygenated areas. With contamination ruled out, scientists had to consider more radical possibilities. Some proposed that the organisms were recently evolved variants of known species, adapting to changing ocean chemistry in real time. The most mind-bending theory is the parallel evolution hypothesis. This suggests that these Loricifera represent a completely separate evolutionary pathway that developed alternative solutions to the energy requirements of complex life, a form of parallel evolution. Dr. De Navarro and his team proposed that the Latalante Loricifera had evolved from ancestors that gradually adapted to increasingly anoxic conditions over millions of years. As the brine pool became more isolated and oxygen depleted, natural selection favored organisms that could survive without aerobic respiration. But here is the catch. This theory requires accepting that complex life can evolve completely novel metabolic pathways that operate on principles unknown to biochemistry. The organisms would need to develop entirely new cellular machinery for generating energy. Some researchers have proposed even more radical explanations. The creatures might represent a relic population from Earth's early history, when the atmosphere contained little oxygen and life operated on different biochemical principles. The implications are staggering. If complex life can evolve to thrive without oxygen, it suggests that our understanding of the fundamental requirements for biology is incomplete. Life might be possible in environments we have dismissed as sterile. The discovery of oxygen-free Loricifera proved that our understanding of the limits of complex life is fundamentally flawed. These organisms do not just survive in impossible conditions. They have evolved to require them, representing a form of biology so alien that it challenges our definition of what life can be. This means complex life can develop along evolutionary pathways that operate on completely different principles than anything we have studied. The biochemical processes that power these organisms use metabolic pathways that do not exist in any other known life form. But the question that haunts biologists is deeper. If complex life can evolve to thrive in Earth's most extreme environments, what other forms of impossible biology might exist in places we have never thought to look? Are there entire ecosystems operating on alien biochemistry, hidden in environments we have dismissed as lifeless? Do these oxygen-free creatures represent a completely separate branch of evolution, one that developed alternative solutions to the energy requirements of complex life? Or are they evidence that life is far more adaptable than we ever imagined? What if this discovery is proof that complex organisms can exist in environments we have always considered sterile? What if there are entire ecosystems operating on alien biochemistry right here on Earth, hidden in places so extreme that we never thought to look for life? The Loricifera of the Latalante Basin might be evidence that life can evolve solutions to survival challenges we have not even imagined. If that is true, then our search for life in the universe needs to expand to include environments we have always dismissed as impossible. Let me know your theory in the comments. If you want to keep exploring the discoveries that are rewriting our understanding of life's limits, hit the like button and subscribe for more biological mysteries that challenge everything we thought we knew about what is possible on our planet.